What happens when two of the music industry's most respected voices sit down for what should be a friendly conversation, and it turns into one of the most uncomfortable moments in daytime television history? Before we get into this, make sure you subscribe and drop a comment below telling us whose side you're on, because what you're about to witness is going to divide opinions. This is the story of how a simple interview between Kelly Clarkson and Chris Daughtry went from warm reunion to explosive confrontation, ending with Chris walking off the set in front of a stunned studio audience. The energy in the studio feels electric as Kelly Clarkson welcomes Chris Daughtry to her show. They share the same origin story, both having competed on American Idol, both having built massive careers in rock and pop music. The audience applauds enthusiastically as Chris takes his seat across from Kelly. And for the first few minutes, everything seems perfectly normal. They exchange pleasantries, laugh about old memories from their Idol days, and the conversation flows easily. But then Kelly steers the interview in a direction that catches Chris completely off guard. Kelly leans forward with that signature smile of hers and says, "So, Chris, I have to ask you something that I think a lot of people have been wondering about. Your band has been around for almost 20 years now, and you've had some incredible hits. But I've noticed that your recent albums haven't quite captured that same magic that Daughtry's self-titled debut had. Do you ever feel like maybe you peaked too early?" The audience goes quiet. You can feel the shift in the room immediately. Chris's expression changes from relaxed to guarded in an instant. He lets out a small laugh, the kind that doesn't reach his eyes, and says, "Wow, Kelly, that's quite a question to ask." Kelly doesn't back down. She maintains that friendly demeanor, but there's something sharper underneath as she responds, "I'm just being honest. I mean, we've known each other for years. I can ask you the tough questions, right? Your first album went quadruple platinum. It was everywhere. But the last few albums, the numbers just aren't the same. Don't you think that says something?" Chris shifts in his seat. He's clearly trying to keep his composure, but you can see the frustration building. The numbers aren't the same because the entire music industry isn't the same. Kelly, you know that. Nobody sells albums like they did in 2006, 2007. Streaming changed everything. The fact that we're still selling out tours and connecting with fans, that matters more than chart positions. Kelly nods, but then she goes even further. "Sure, but let's be real. Even accounting for industry changes, there are artists who have managed to stay relevant, to evolve with the times. Taylor Swift, Beyoncé, even artists from our era have found ways to reinvent themselves. When was the last time you had a song that really made people stop and pay attention?" I'm not trying to be harsh, I'm just asking what everyone's thinking. The tension is palpable. Now, Chris's jaw tightens and he says, "What everyone's thinking," or "what you're thinking," because it sounds like you're projecting some of your own insecurities onto me right now. That comment lands like a bomb. Kelly's smile falters for just a second before she recovers. "My insecurities? Chris, I've had 3 #1 albums in the last 5 years. My talk show is one of the highest rated in daytime television. I think I'm doing just fine." Chris leans back and crosses his arms. "Right? And you need to make sure everyone knows that, don't you? That's what this is really about. You didn't bring me here to have a conversation. You brought me here to make yourself look better by comparison." Kelly's voice takes on a defensive edge. "That is absolutely not what this is about. I brought you here because I respect you as an artist, and I thought we could have an honest conversation about the realities of the music business. But apparently you can't handle honesty." The audience is completely silent now, watching this unfold like a car crash they can't look away from. Chris uncrosses his arms and leans forward, his voice lowering but becoming more intense. "Honesty. You want to talk about honesty? Let's be honest then. Kelly, you've been in this industry long enough to know that success isn't just about chart positions and sales numbers. It's about integrity. It's about staying true to your artistic vision instead of chasing whatever trend is going to get you the most clicks or the most views." Kelly's face flushes slightly. "Are you saying I don't have integrity? Are you seriously sitting here on my show, insulting me?" Chris shakes his head. "I'm not insulting you. I'm pointing out that maybe, just maybe, you've become so caught up in the Hollywood machine that you've forgotten what it's like to be an artist who actually cares about the music more than the accolades." Kelly's producer can be heard off camera saying something, probably trying to steer them back on track, but Kelly waves them off. She's locked in now, and so is Chris. Kelly says, "You know what, Chris? I think the reason you're getting so defensive is because deep down you know I'm right. You had one massive album, and then you spent the next 15 years trying to recapture that lightning in a bottle. Meanwhile, some of us have continued to grow and evolve." Chris stands up suddenly, and the audience gasps. He looks down at Kelly and says, "Some of us have continued to sell out. You mean, there's a difference between evolving and abandoning who you are for mass appeal. I came here thinking we were going to have a real conversation between two people who came up together, who understood the struggle. But instead, you wanted to use me as a stepping stool for your ego." Kelly stands up to now. her voice rising. My ego, you're the one who can't accept that your career isn't what it used to be. I was trying to have a real conversation with you, but you're too busy being defensive to actually engage. Chris takes a step back from the chair. A real conversation doesn't start with telling someone they peaked almost 20 years ago. Kelly, that's not real. That's cruel. And you know what? I don't need to sit here and take this from someone who's forgotten where she came from. Kelly's eyes flashed with anger. Forgotten where I came from? I have done nothing but support artists who came up the same way I did. I've used this platform to give people opportunities. What have you done besides coast on the success of one album? That's the breaking point. Chris shakes his head slowly and says, I'm done here. This is ridiculous. He starts to remove his microphone pack, fumbling with the wire as the tension reaches its peak. Kelly's voice follows him. Oh, so you're just going to walk away. Very mature, Chris. Very professional. Chris stops for a moment and turns back to face her. His voice is quieter now, but there's a weight to it that somehow cuts through more than the shouting did. You want to know what's unprofessional? Kelly, inviting someone onto your show under the guise of friendship and then ambushing them with backhanded compliments and thinly veiled insults. That's unprofessional. I've spent nearly 2 decades building a career on my own terms, making music that means something to me and to my fans. I don't need validation from you or anyone else. Kelly crosses her arms, her own voice lowering to match his intensity. No one's asking you to need validation. I was trying to have a substantive conversation about the challenges of sustaining a music career. But clearly you're not interested in that level of depth. Chris lets out a bitter laugh. Depth? You think what you were doing was depth? You were being condescending. There's a difference between asking tough questions and being deliberately provocative for ratings. Kelly's expression hardens at that accusation. For ratings? Really? You think I need to manufacture drama for ratings? My show does just fine without stunts. Chris, maybe if you focused less on being defensive and more on answering the actual question, we wouldn't be here right now. Chris takes a deep breath, clearly trying to regain some composure, but the damage is already done. The audience sits frozen, some people looking at each other with wide eyes, others staring straight ahead as if watching something they shouldn't be seeing. Chris says, the actual question was whether I think I peaked too early. That's not a question, Kelly. That's an accusation wrapped in a question mark. And you know it. Kelly uncrosses her arms and gestures broadly. Fine, let me rephrase it then. Do you think that maybe you played it too safe after your debut? That you didn't take enough risks to keep people interested? Because that's a legitimate artistic question. Chris shakes his head in disbelief. Playing it safe, I've made the exact music I wanted to make. I didn't chase pop trends. I didn't try to become something I'm not just to stay in the spotlight. If that's playing it safe to you, then maybe we have completely different definitions of what being an artist means. Kelly's voice takes on an edge of frustration. See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. You act like staying in your lane is some badge of honor, but maybe it's just stubbornness. Maybe it's fear of trying something new and failing. The words hang in the air between them. Chris stares at her for a long moment, and when he speaks again, his voice is dangerously calm. You think I'm afraid of failing? Kelly, I've been counted out more times than I can remember. I finished 4th on American Idol. 4th, everyone said I should have one, but I didn't. And you know what I did? I went out and built something anyway. I didn't need a television show to validate me. I didn't need to constantly remind people of my accomplishments because the work spoke for itself. Kelly's face flushes deeper, and there it is. This is really about the show, isn't it? You're jealous. You're sitting here criticizing me for having a successful talk show because you wish you had the same opportunities. Chris actually laughs at that, a sharp, incredulous sound. Jealous. Of what? Of sitting here every day asking celebrities softball questions and playing silly games. No thank you. I'd rather be on stage doing what I actually love than hosting a show where I apparently ambush guests for entertainment value. Kelly points at him, her composure starting to crack. You don't get to come on my show and disrespect what I do. This show means something to people. It brings joy to millions of viewers every single day. What you're doing right now, this tantrum you're throwing, this is exactly the kind of attitude that's held your career back. Chris's eyes narrow. Held my career back. My career is exactly where I want it to be. I tour constantly. I make music with my band. I connect with fans who actually appreciate what we do. I don't need to be on magazine covers or winning awards to feel successful. But clearly you do, because you can't stop talking about your accomplishments long enough to have a genuine conversation. Kelly throws her hands up. A genuine conversation requires 2 people willing to be vulnerable and honest. You've been defensive from the moment I asked you anything remotely challenging. That's not my fault. Chris steps closer to the chair again, not sitting but leaning on it. Challenging questions are fine. Kelly, I've done hundreds of interviews where people have asked me tough questions about my career, my music, my choices. The difference is those interviewers actually wanted to understand my perspective. You just wanted to make a point. You wanted to show everyone that you're still on top and I'm somehow beneath you. Kelly's voice rises again. That is not what this is about. What Why can't you just accept that? Maybe, just maybe, I was trying to push you to think differently about your career, to consider whether you could be doing more. Chris straightens up, his voice cutting through hers. Because I don't need you to push me. Kelly, I don't need your advice or your perspective on my career. We're not friends. We're acquaintances who happened to be on the same show 20 years ago. You don't know my life. You don't know my struggles. You don't know what drives me or what fulfills me. So don't sit here and pretend like you're doing me some kind of favor by questioning whether I've lived up to my potential. The audience is completely transfixed now. Some people have their hands over their mouths. Others are leaning forward in their seats. This has gone far beyond an awkward interview moment. This is personal now. Kelly takes a step toward Chris, her voice shaking slightly. You're right, we're not friends. But I thought we had mutual respect. I thought we could be honest with each other about this industry and what it takes to survive in it. Clearly, I was wrong. Chris nods slowly. Yeah, you were wrong. Because respect doesn't look like what you did here today. Respect doesn't mean starting a conversation by telling someone they haven't been relevant in years. That's not respect. That's contempt, dressed up as concern. Kelly's eyes are blazing now. I never said you weren't relevant. I asked if you felt like you peaked early. There's a difference. Chris's voice drops low again, and somehow that's more powerful than when he was raising it. The implication is the same, Kelly, and you're smart enough to know that. You wanted this reaction. You wanted fireworks. Well, congratulations. You got them. But you also lost whatever respect I had left for you. Kelly's mouth opens and closes. For a moment, she seems genuinely taken aback by that statement. Then she recovers, her media training kicking in. I'm sorry you feel that way, Chris. I genuinely was trying to have a meaningful conversation about the evolution of an artist's career. If it came across differently, that wasn't my intention. Chris shakes his head. Don't do that. Don't give me the polished, PR-friendly apology. We're past that now. You meant exactly what you said, and I heard exactly what you meant. The question is whether you're brave enough to own it instead of walking it back because the audience is watching. Kelly glances at the audience, then back at Chris. Her jaw sets in a hard line. Fine, you want me to own it? I'll own it. Yes, I think you could have done more with your career. I think you had an opportunity that very few people get, and you didn't maximize it. I think you settled into a comfort zone, and you've been there ever since. Is that honest enough for you? The silence that follows is deafening. Chris stares at her, and for a moment, it looks like he might actually sit back down and continue this fight. But then something shifts in his expression. It's not anger anymore. It's disappointment. He says quietly, you know what the saddest part of this is, Kelly? You actually believe what you're saying. You've been in Hollywood so long that you think the only way to measure success is by how high you climb and how many people know your name. You've forgotten that some of us got into this because we love music, not because we love fame. Kelly's voice is defensive now. I love music. Don't you dare suggest that I don't love music. Chris holds up a hand. I'm sure you do. But somewhere along the way, you started loving the validation more. And that's fine. That's your choice. But don't project your values onto me and then act surprised when I don't accept them. Kelly's producer speaks up again from off camera, louder this time. Kelly, we need to go to commercial. Kelly ignores them. She's locked onto Chris now, her pride clearly wounded. You think you're so much better than me because you play rock music and tours in smaller venues. You think that makes you more authentic? That's just ego. Chris, that's you convincing yourself that your choices are superior because you can't admit that maybe you're just scared to try for something bigger. Chris's face goes cold. I'm done. I'm actually done. He reaches for his microphone pack again, this time successfully unhooking it. He drops it on the chair and says, good luck with your show, Kelly. I hope the ratings were worth it. Kelly watches him set down the microphone, and something in her expression changes. It's as if she suddenly realizes this has gone too far. That this isn't just dramatic television anymore but an actual bridge burning in real time. She says, her voice softer now, Chris, wait, can we just take a breath here? Maybe we both got a little heated. Chris stops walking toward the exit but doesn't turn around. His shoulders are tense, his hands clenched at his sides. He says over his shoulder, a little heated, Kelly, you basically told me my entire career for the last 15 years has been a disappointment. And when I tried to defend myself, you doubled down. There's no walking that back. Kelly takes a few steps toward him, her hands held out in a placating gesture. I didn't say your career was a disappointment. I said I thought you could have pushed yourself more. There's a difference, and I think you know that. Chris finally turns around, and his face is a mixture of anger and exhaustion. No, there isn't a difference. Not really, because what you're saying is that what I've accomplished isn't enough. That the music I've made, the fans I've connected with, the tours I've done, the life I've built, it's all somehow lesser because I'm not at your level of fame. Do you have any idea how insulting that is? Kelly shakes her head. That's not what I meant. I'm trying to have a conversation about artistic growth, about challenging yourself, about not getting complacent. Chris cuts her off. And I'm telling you that you don't have the right to define what growth looks like for me. You don't get to decide what challenging myself means. Just because I didn't pivot to pop music or start doing television doesn't mean I've been complacent. It means I've been focused. It means I've been intentional. But apparently in your world, intentional looks like stagnant. The audience is watching this unfold with rapt attention. Some people are nodding along with Chris. Others look sympathetic to Kelly. The division in the room is palpable. Kelly tries again, her voice taking on a pleading quality. Chris, I have always respected you as an artist. I brought you on this show because I wanted to celebrate your music and your journey. If I came across as judgmental, I apologize. Chris lets out a long breath. See, that's the thing though. Kelly, you keep saying if you came across that way, like it's somehow a misunderstanding on my part. You weren't misunderstood. You were very clear. You think I peaked in 2006 and I've been coasting ever since. You said it multiple times in multiple different ways. That's not something you can just apologize away. Kelly's frustration returns, bleeding through her attempts at reconciliation. What do you want from me? Chris, you want me to say I was completely wrong, that you've had the most amazing career and every choice you've made has been perfect? Because I can't do that. I asked you a tough question because I thought you could handle it. I thought we were both professional enough to have a real discussion. Chris's voice rises again. A real discussion happens when both people are operating in good faith. This wasn't good faith, Kelly. This was you using your platform to elevate yourself by diminishing me. And the worst part is, I don't even think you realize you're doing it. You've become so accustomed to being the biggest star in the room that you can't help but make sure everyone else knows they're smaller. Kelly's face goes red. That is completely unfair. I have never, not once, used my platform to make other artists feel small. I champion artists on this show. I give them opportunities. I celebrate their work. Chris nods sarcastically. Right, you celebrate them by telling them they peaked 2 decades ago. That's very celebratory. Kelly, very supportive. Kelly's composure finally cracks completely. Her voice comes out sharp and defensive. You know what, Chris? Maybe the problem isn't what I said. Maybe the problem is that you can't handle hearing the truth. Maybe the reason you're so angry right now is because somewhere deep down you know I'm right, and that terrifies you. Chris goes very still. When he speaks, his voice is quiet but intense. The truth. You want to know the truth? The truth is that I would rather have the career I have, playing music I believe in for fans who genuinely connect with it, than have your career where I'm constantly performing for an audience that doesn't know the real me. The truth is that success looks different to different people, and your definition isn't universal. The truth is that I walked into this interview expecting to reconnect with someone from my past, and instead I got ambushed by someone who's so insecure about their own choices that they need to tear down mine to feel better. Kelly's eyes go wide. Insecure? You're calling me insecure? That's rich coming from someone who's spent the last 20 minutes defending decisions that apparently don't need defending if you're so confident in them. Chris laughs, but there's no humor in it. I'm defending them because you attacked them. Don't confuse defending myself with insecurity. If I was insecure, I would have agreed with you. I would have said, yeah, you're right, Kelly. I should have done more. I should have been bigger. But I'm not going to do that because I don't believe it. I'm proud of what I've built. I'm proud of the music I've made. And I don't need your approval or anyone else's to feel good about that. Kelly crosses her arms again, her body language closed off now. Fine, you're proud of your choices. That's great, but don't act like I'm the villain here for asking you to reflect on your career. That's what interviews are supposed to do. They're supposed to make people think. Chris shakes his head slowly. There's a difference between making someone think and making someone feel like garbage. Kelly, you crossed that line about 10 minutes ago, and the fact that you can't see the difference is exactly why I need to leave. Kelly's voice follows him as he turns toward the exit again. So that's it. You're just going to walk out. You're going to make a scene and leave me here to deal with the fallout. Chris stops one more time and looks back at her. The fallout. Kelly, you created this situation. You asked the questions. You pushed the buttons. You wanted authentic? Well, this is authentic. This is me authentically deciding that I have better things to do with my time than sit here and be insulted on national television. Kelly's mask slips entirely now, and genuine frustration pours out. You are being so dramatic right now. I asked you one tough question, and you're acting like I attacked your entire existence. Do you know how many artists would kill to be on this show? Do you know how much publicity this appearance was going to give you? Chris's expression hardens. There it is. That's what this is really about, isn't it? You think you're doing me a favor by having me here. You think I should be grateful for the exposure. Well, newsflash, Kelly. I don't need your show. I don't need the publicity. I have a career that exists completely independent of your platform. And the fact that you can't understand that shows exactly how out of touch you've become. Kelly's voice breaks slightly. Out of touch? I talk to real people every single day. I connect with audiences all across the country. I am not out of touch. Chris looks at her with something that might be pity. You talk to people. Sure, but do you listen? Or are you so busy thinking about the next question, the next segment, the next rating, that you've forgotten how to actually hear what people are saying. The silence that follows is heavy. Kelly opens her mouth to respond, but nothing comes out. The audience sits frozen, watching two people who clearly have very different views of success and validation, tearing into each other's choices and values. Chris takes that silence as his answer. He says quietly, "That's what I thought." He turns and walks toward the stage exit. Kelly calls after him one last time, her voice strained. "Chris, if you walk off this stage, that's it. You understand that? That's the story. That's what people are going to remember." Chris doesn't stop walking, but he calls back without turning around. "Good. Let them remember it. Let them remember that I have boundaries. Let them remember that I won't sit there and smile while someone disrespects everything I've worked for. If that makes me the bad guy in your story, I can live with that." And with that, Chris Daughtry walks off the Kelly Clarkson show, leaving Kelly standing alone on the stage. The audience completely silent, and the cameras still rolling. Kelly stands there for a moment, clearly trying to process what just happened, before she finally looks at her producer off camera and mouths something that looks like, "Go to commercial." The screen fades out on Kelly's face, a mixture of shock, anger, and something that might be regret crossing her features. What was supposed to be a friendly reunion between two American Idol alumni turned into one of the most explosive confrontations in daytime television history. The question that everyone is asking now is whether this was a moment of authentic emotion or a publicity stunt gone wrong. But based on the genuine shock on both of their faces, this seemed very real. So, what do you think? Was Kelly out of line for asking those tough questions, or was Chris being too defensive? Was this about artistic integrity, or just two egos clashing? Drop a comment below and let us know where you stand. And make sure you subscribe because we'll be covering any fallout from this interview as it develops. The real question is, whose side are you on? Kelly's or Chris's?